Hello everyone, my name is Nives and I'm a mother of two beautiful daughters, and I've recently left my job and my career in order to stay home and homeschool my children. Really excited to be joining the homeschooling community on YouTube. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being on my channel. So today I wanted to talk about why we decided to homeschool our girls. Honestly, this was not something that was ever on my mind before I became a mom. Even when I became a mother, you know, it was not something I considered. I knew one single homeschooler and I had my own judgments on homeschooling. I was one of those people who was wondering how you could possibly homeschool children and have them be socialized. How can they be ready for the world? You know, all those cliches that you hear about homeschooling and the worries about homeschooling, I had those. So it was not at all on my mind. And then the pandemic happened and my whole view of the world shifted. There's a helicopter going by, so I don't know if the microphone's catching that, probably. Yeah, my whole view of the world shifted. How I viewed the public education shifted, the government's role in our life, my role in my family's life, our family's role in the society, my children's role in the society, all of that, you know, like it had a revamp. And then that's when I really started considering homeschooling as a true possibility. And you know, my husband was on board from the get-go. He was like, yeah, let's go, let's do it. So at the end of the day, it became my decision, you know, are we really doing this? But yeah, it was at the time of the pandemic, my eldest daughter was in daycare full time, and she was there for 1.5 years. And I remember at the time it was, you know, it was those times when you couldn't enter the room. I don't know how it was where you were, but we weren't allowed in the room. We had to drop her off in front of the daycare center, which was in a school. A coordinator would come out and get her. So I didn't really meet her educators until much later on. And you know, everybody was masked up. She couldn't see people's faces, and it was in French too. So, you know, she's learning a second language on top of it, and she couldn't even read lips properly, which is so important. So a lot of it was really, really wrong. I'm not gonna go too much into details. I'm not gonna go into any details at all, but we had a lot of issues with how it was all handled. And that was basically our only experience with sending our daughter into a system, a government-run system. So it was a pretty traumatic experience for her, and it was a pretty traumatic experience for us as well. I don't think any of it was normal. You know, we normalized it. We thought, oh, well, everybody's going through it, so it's okay. Our kids will be okay. Our kids are so resilient, and they are resilient, you know. Children are probably more resilient than a lot of adults are. It still comes at a cost, right, of their well-being, and I do regret that time. And then, you know, I went on maternity leave about 1.5 years later with my second daughter and pulled her out, and then we had a full 18 months together, and it was a beautiful time. And during that time is when we really solidified that I will not be going back to work. I mean, a lot of things happened during that time too that led me to that conclusion, but like we decided I'm not gonna go back to work. I'm gonna stay home and I'm gonna homeschool my daughters. And honestly, I am so glad I did that. I almost passed out on that decision, and to think that I would be missing out on all these memories we're making now, it just makes me so sad. So I'll touch on that in another video, but yeah, I wanted to talk about why we decided to homeschool in the first place. So I have to be transparent. The reasons why we decided to homeschool in the first place, they're no longer necessarily the reasons why we're homeschooling now, if that makes any sense. And I also spent a lot of time familiarizing myself with how the public school system came about, why it came about when it did, why it is designed the way that it is designed. And once you know and learn certain things, you can't really unknow those things. So, you know, that's a big deciding factor that is always top of mind. So even if these other current issues in the public school system would be fixed, like the size of classes or what's being taught, or, you know, like all of these things that we all have as issues, or how things are being taught at what age, etc., etc. Even if all of those things were fixed, it still wouldn't take away the fact that I don't agree with why and how the public school system was set up in the first place. So that's where I'm saying what started as a we don't agree with the state of the world, or like the state of the world is leading us to homeschool has now moved into we love homeschooling and we are homeschooling despite the state of the world. It has nothing to do with that anymore. The number one reason why we decided to homeschool our children was for the ability for our children to have a truly individualized education. And so many children just get rushed through the school system or slowed down by it. It's a rhythm that's not necessarily adapted to any child in particular, or it's not even adapted to most of the kids. It's just a rhythm that's there to keep a group of 30, 20, however many kids there is going at a steady pace so that the one teacher, can have a hold of their class. So, now with homeschooling, time is no longer a constraint. We can start our day when we start our day. We can get to the topics we get to, how much time we spend learning about, like a poem that we're reading, or how much time we spend reading a certain book, how much time we spend counting. I'm giving topics that we are studying at the kindergarten level, but all of those things, we're not constrained by the time. There's no bell ringing telling us, okay, now move on to the next one, or okay, now is the time to give up your drawing, and this is when you have to eat. This is you have your 15 minutes of recess, and that's when you go out. If my children struggle in one topic, I can spend a lot of time on that topic with them. I can focus on how they best learn, so their learning can be truly individualized. It can be the type of learning that works best for them, and also the type of curriculum that I as a teacher feel the most comfortable teaching. The teaching style also matters, right? So we are going to be choosing a Charlotte Mason method. That's something that I find incredibly appealing. I've read the Charlotte Mason volumes, and I just think, we're adapting our kindergarten teachings to what she's suggesting as well. And I just think it's a beautiful, wholesome way to teach my daughters. And I'm really excited that we get to do that. And of course, as homeschoolers, you get to fit more substance in one day. The school day is elongated into 6 to 7 hours, give or take. I don't know what it is exactly, but we get to learn in a short amount of time and then have the rest of the time to really focus on life skills, to focus on forming habits, to focus on playing, having fun, building connections, going out, having so many field trips. And there's just so many beautiful ways to learn without the confines of four walls, of our home or a school. Number 2 reason why we decided to homeschool is the ability to keep our family together. So that was really, really important to me, when I realized that when we were sending my daughter in daycare, she was having her 9-to-5 job, I was having my 9-to-5 job, and my husband was doing his. And the thought of doing that to 4 of us now, separating us in 4 different directions, it just felt wrong. I wanted my daughters to grow up together, to learn together, to play together, to have friends together. I wanted our family united, cohesive. I wanted that to be what they're used to and what they remember from their childhood. So homeschooling really just offers us that. Number 3, we get to choose what our children are exposed to. So I find this one to be a controversial one whenever I speak to someone who sends their children to a regular school, because I feel like sometimes they can be on the defense about that. I get sometimes, or I've heard people say, you shouldn't be sheltering your children from the world. And I used to think like this back in the day. I used to think, well, expose the children to the world. And of course, we should be exposing our children to the world. But as a family and as a mother, it is my role to pick and choose what goes into my children's brains, what goes into their souls, what feeds their hearts, especially at this age. I get to choose that. I get to choose what I let in through TV, through media, through songs. I get to have control of that because I am their mother. I am the one who is guiding them through their childhood. I'm the one who is educating them, who's teaching them that. And I think that's my role. I think children are, they're little. it's their childhood at play. They can be impressionable. They are, what's the word I'm looking for? Literal. So I think it can be dangerous if we don't take those things into account. So yeah, I do think that you should do everything you can to preserve your children's childhood. And I know I can't shelter them from everything. My own childhood was impacted by a lot of circumstances. You know, I come from a war-torn country. I came to Canada. We came here as refugees from that country. So, you know, we went through a lot, and my childhood was severely impacted by that. So there's a lot that you can't have control over. But the things that you can as a parent have control over, I think it's important to take that control of them. You know, I think it's important as a parent to be like, okay, that's my responsibility, whether my child gets to watch said TV show or gets to hear certain topics at 5 years old, or, you know, how those topics are breached and approached. And I think home is a safe space for that, you know, like sitting around your dining room table and having conversations that are age appropriate. You know, you're not necessarily holding back from talking to them about certain things or certain topics, but you're doing it gradually in an age appropriate way, while also being able to, you know, teach them truly what the values of their family are and why those values are important, and the, you know, the ability to touch their heart. I think that's wonderful. And, you know, I don't think you need to be homeschooling to be doing these things, but I think with homeschooling, you have a whole lot more time, and there's a whole less weeding out of, you know, what they learn at school or what they might have been exposed to in certain scenarios outside the home. And finally, the number 4 reason why we decided to homeschool is just the sheer amount of outdoor time we get, you know, as part of our day. So as I mentioned before, we are Charlotte Mason homeschoolers, and what in part drove me to picking the Charlotte Mason philosophy as the educational approach to our homeschooling is how much she emphasized the importance of outdoor time for children, you know, for their cognitive development, for their well-being, for their sleep, for their appetite, you know, just for their whole persona. It is just so important. She was recommending, I believe, something like 6 hours a day of outdoor time, which is sometimes very difficult to do. Well, most of the time it's difficult to do, especially in Canada where I am. But, you know, we focused a lot on outdoor time, and that was a focus that we've had before I even discovered Charlotte Mason, because I noticed the benefits of outdoor time on my children. So, you know, we bring a lot of our learning outdoors. We bring a lot of our activities outdoors. I try to make our backyard a 4-season space so that my kids can really love being outside. And, you know, we're always out. We're learning about flowers. We're learning about leaves. My children are able to identify types of trees, types of leaves, watching insects. My oldest, she spent the last summer basically just focused on an ant colony. Like every time we would step outside, she would be spending an hour a day, like just watching these ants, or longer even sometimes. So it's really a beautiful thing when you let your children have that time in nature. And I just think that homeschooling really gives us that time. We wouldn't be able to do all that learning outdoors if they were in a school setting. That's just a fact. So there you go. Those are the 4 main reasons why we decided to homeschool. If there's anything that I said that appeals to you, feel free to start a conversation below. If there's any reasons that you have that I might have not mentioned that you want to share for homeschooling, please feel free to do so. And like I said, I'm so excited to be joining this community and to be joining the conversation on homeschooling. I'm really excited to be here, that we get to do this. And I hope that I get to provide some encouragement when I do share our journey and some of our challenges too. So thank you again for stopping by, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye everyone.